bust in honor of Umkhonto weSizwe, former combatants that contributed to the liberation struggle in the battle in Luraizo in 1987 against the apartheid forces in Willowvale in the Eastern Cape province. Mashatile has assured the families that government will make sure that the remains of the Umkhonto weSizwe combatants Mbulelo, Ngono and four other former combatants are traced and found. Families are still seeking justice, and the remains of Ngono family spokesperson Tobeka Ngono explains.
I really appreciate the monument, but this will not bring back my brother. This will not hold those that are responsible for his assassination accountable. This is just a token of appreciation. All what I want is my brother's remains. What I want is justice. And we hope now that the deputy president is here, we will get closure to the trauma that we are going through.
6 people have been killed after a light aircraft belonging to a medical charity crashed in Kenya's capital, Nairobi. That's according to a local official. Charity Amref Flying Doctors said the Cessna plane took off from Wilson Airport on Thursday afternoon and was en route to Hargeisa in Somalia, where it crashed and burst into flames at a residential building in Nairobi's Githurai area. Kiumba County Commissioner Henry Wafula said 4 people on the plane were killed, including doctors, nurses and the pilot, as well as another 2 people on the ground. 2 others were seriously injured. Investigators have been dispatched to the scene of the crash to establish its cause. Tanzanians are mourning veteran politician and former Speaker of Parliament Job Ndugai, who became the first to resign from the role after a public fallout with the president. Ndugai, who has served as an MP for the past 25 years, died in Dodoma, Tanzania's capital, on Wednesday at the age of 62. The cause of death was not given, although local media reported he had been undergoing treatment at a hospital in the city. And lastly, the Greek Minister for Migration, Tanos Pevris, says the number of migrants arriving on the island of Crete has dropped significantly since the government suspended asylum hearings for new arrivals last month. The BBC's Rachel Wright.
In the first 6 months of this year, an unprecedented number of migrants crossed the Mediterranean and landed on the island of Crete, sparking anger in the popular tourist destination. As a result, the Greek Minister for Migration, Thanos Plevris, put migrants' ability to claim asylum on hold for 3 months. He said this had led to a significant drop in arrivals, from more than 2,500 in the first week of July to below 900 in the month since the announcement. The right to claim asylum is enshrined in European law.
For any news stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us at +27 11 714 4459. Channel Africa News, I'm Onele Ntsintsi.
SABC News, the African perspective.
And coming up in your sports news this hour, CAF has slapped Kenya as well as Tanzania with heavy fines, while Victoria Mboko is officially the new queen of the Canadian Open. Details coming up at 12:30.
Your window to the continent and beyond. Africa Update, only on Channel Africa. Channel Africa, the African perspective.
It is 12:06 Central African time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. Thank you to Onele Ntsintsi with our news update and Msibudi Makura with our sports headlines. We are on DSTV's audio bouquet channel 802, OpenView channel 628, and on www.channelafrica.co.za, as well as on the SABC Plus app, available on the Apple and Google Play stores. Now, the big story coming out from the Pretoria High Court in Johannesburg, in Pretoria in South Africa, is the decision from the South African court that has ruled on the repatriation of Zambia's former president, the late Edgar Lungu's body, which will be repatriated back to Zambia. And we have our reporter who is on the ground at the North Gauteng High Court, Michael Mbewe. Michael, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Good afternoon, Lulu. Good afternoon to our African listeners and beyond, Lulu. We are, coming to you live from the North Gauteng High Court, sitting in the capital, Pretoria, Lulu.
Now, Michael, the decision has been made. We want to know what the reaction was from both parties. That's the Lungu family and the Attorney General representing Zambia as a country.
Yes, indeed, Lulu. The judgment has been handed in this very contentious matter between the Zambian government and the Lungu's family over the burial of the late former president. And handing the judgment was acting Judge President Epilibaba, saying that the final verdict, where the three judges have come to the conclusion that the body of the former statesman should be buried, should be repatriated back to Zambia for burial. But well, after the judgment was handed, we saw emotions, going very high from the side of the Lungu's family. But just to give us, how vindicated is the Zambian government is, joined here by the Attorney General of Zambia, Mr. Mulilo Kabisha. Mr. Kabisha, thank you so much for joining us. We are live on Channel Africa of the SABC. Yes, you've been attending this court case since Monday, where we were here doing, the deliberations where both sides were giving their, sides of the story. And then today, Friday, we were promised to get a judgment, and yes, we got it. How vindicated are you seeing that this judgment, has fallen into your hands?
Thank you very much. The judgment, I can say that it was a sound judgment. All the reliefs we had asked have been given. The relief was the first one we did was to stop the burial, which was to take place here in South Africa. And then the second relief was this particular one, which was decided today. The relief was that the remains of the sixth president of the Republic of Zambia, Edgar Chagwa Lungu, was to be repatriated to Zambia, given a state funeral with all the protocols involved, and buried at Embassy Park, where we have decided as Zambians that's where we'll be burying our former presidents and serving presidents if they die. And so the court has agreed with us that that is the better way to do it. The issues of who had the right to the body, the court was very specific that this was the former president. He wasn't an ordinary person. We cannot bring private issues of a person who served as a president. Is not a private issue. It is a national issue. And so we are grateful for the judgment. I think it helps even other countries in Southern Africa, in Africa, and I think even in the other parts of the world, that this was a sound judgment, and it gives good guidance. And as I indicated earlier during the week, I think time has come with what had happened, what had transpired with this case. Time has come for the countries to come up with pieces of legislation to cover the issues of what happens when a former head of state dies. And so we appreciate what has happened. But we are not celebrating. No, you can't celebrate the burial of somebody. We just want to continue praying for the family and praying the nation of Zambia so that we come to a closure of this issue.
coming to what you have just alluded now, saying that I think now is time where this should be a lesson to other, African nations, where this type of things has been happening for, quite some time. We recall, like we were speaking on Monday, that this is something that is repeating itself. We saw also in 2021 a dispute between, the Zambian government and then also with the government of the late statesman, Mr. Kaunda. Just take us through how did you manage to resolve that dispute?
Well, what happened with the Kaunda arrangement was that the state had indicated that Kaunda was going to be given a state funeral and that he was going to be buried at the Embassy Park. The family raised the issue that the President Kaunda's wife was buried at the house which was built by the state, and so they wanted the President Kaunda to be buried next to his wife, next to the remains of his wife. And the matter was taken to court. The one thing what the people or the listeners should understand is that Zambia declared itself as a Christian nation. And in Christian principles, the Bible says that what you plant or what you sow is what you reap. If you plant mangoes, you are going to reap mangoes. You can't reap oranges. This current government, and under the leadership of Edgar Chagwa Lungu, they made a decision that whether the family liked it or not, Kaunda was going to be buried at Embassy Park. And the matter went to court. And when it went to court, the judge gave a judgment that Kaunda, being a former president, he was no longer a private arrangement. He was no longer excluded for the family only. And the judge said public interest reigns over private interest. And so that is what, even in this court, that judgment has been quoted by the court here, because it's sound judgment also, that when we find ourselves in some of these positions, including my small position of Attorney General, I can never think I'm a private person. I'm never private, and I will never be private. Even when I die, I will not be private unless there is something which has happened.
So, in summing up our conversation here, you stated that you did this because of the people of Zambia. How do you think the Zambian, public has received this judgment? Of course, it's still early, but I think you've been speaking to the people back at home on how much of anticipation have they been, looking forward to this day.
Honestly speaking, the Zambian people are happy that they will attend the burial of President Lungu. The majority, of course, and we can't have everyone happy. There are some, those who belong to the Lungu family, those who belong to the Patriotic Front, some, of course, even the Patriotic Front, some of the members were with us in terms of what we are asking the court here to do. And so some are happy, some are not. But for us, we just feel that we have done the right thing. It's our responsibility as government to make sure that former presidents are buried at Embassy Park.
But also, just to add on something, so what will you do if there are those that will be maybe seeking to mess up or the programs of the the burial in Lusaka, but also looking at maybe the Lungus might think, let's appeal. How are you going to handle those two situations?
Well, the the people in Zambia, I don't think they will try to disrupt the barriers. They can't. They are happy. Even the Patriotic Front members, they have the opportunity now. When the national mourning was declared, the Patriotic Front members were at President Lungu's home and also at their secretariat, and I don't think so. But you see, you, the media, I want to invite you. You, the media, take it the other way around. Imagine what would have happened if President Lungu died in a Zambian hospital. Imagine what we have gone through now. Imagine if President Lungu was evacuated by the Zambian government. What would have been the position of these same people who are behaving like this? Now, when you are a Christian nation, all things are controlled by God, whether you like it or not. You can imagine what they would have said if President Lungu was brought to South Africa under the hands of the government. I'm sure you already know what they screamed when he just died. They said he had been poisoned. Now, poisoned by who? By themselves, because he was with them. Now, these are issues people should sit down and meditate upon and start looking the other side. If Lungu had been brought here by the Zambian government, what would have been the accusation? Because submissions even in this court would have been they killed him.
We leave it there for now, Attorney General, and thank you so much for giving us this opportunity here on Channel Africa.
Thank you.
Lulu, yes, that's the vindication statement from the Zambian Attorney General here, after the judgment has been passed over, this disputed burial for the late Zambian President Edgar Lungu.
Well, Michael, thank you for that discussion with Zambia's Attorney General there, and that's where we'll leave it for today. That's our reporter, Michael Mbewe, who is live at the North Gauteng High Court after the judgment being delivered in the matter between the Zambian government and the family of the late Zambian former president Edgar Lungu, who will be repatriated back home.
Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time.
Now, our question to you today is, what are your thoughts on the ruling? The judgment has been made between the Zambian government and the family of the late former president Edgar Lungu. And the question now is, what are your thoughts on this ruling? And basically, what does it mean for the people of Zambia? And just to read some of the comments that we've received since yesterday, or early in the week when we touched on this particular story, the fact that the judgment was going to be made today. And just a message from Enoch Banda. This is from Facebook, and Enoch says that the government and family must settle themselves, and government must ask if the family what they want from them, and everyone will be going to decompose, and a lot of laughing faces there. And also Nkoma Mkasanga Mambwe says government might win on the condition that he has points. The first point being the head of state doesn't attend nor preside over the funeral, no body viewing. So a lot of comments coming out from Facebook. Isaac Mpungula says the truth is straightforward. He was a president of Zambia, therefore he must get buried in the same country. Otherwise, they will be committing an offense that he ruled Zambia illegally. These are just some of the comments that were sent through from yesterday. Now the judgment has finally been made, and the former late president of Zambia, Edgar Lungu, will be repatriated back to his home country, that is Zambia. What are your thoughts on this ruling? Share your views on all our social media platforms, on X, Instagram, at Channel Africa 1, on Facebook at Channel Africa. Send your comments and voice notes on +2763 as 406 9126. Hashtag Africa Update Asks.
Africa Update on Channel Africa.
The South African Broadcasting Corporation, SABC Sport, brings you Chasing the Sun, a powerful 5-part documentary series about South Africa's national rugby team, the Springboks, telling the rousing tale of their path to redemption and ultimate World Cup glory in 2019. Starting on the 13th of July at 7:30 p.m. Central African Time on SABC2, tune in every Sunday for the highs, the heartache and the heroics that made rugby history. I'll stream each chapter on SABC Plus anytime, anywhere. No subscription needed. Don't miss Chasing the Sun this Sunday at 7:30 p.m. on Central African Time on SABC2. Be there when history shines.
Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo on Channel Africa.
More than 22,000 people have been displaced in Somalia due to intense fighting. This includes over 11,000 children. Thousands have been cut off without basic services. And to speak to us further on this situation in central Somalia, we are joined on the line by Francesca Sangiorgi, Humanitarian Director for Save the Children Somalia. Francesca, good afternoon and thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, what is the situation currently on the ground? What are the people they're facing?
Thank you. The situation is quite critical. We've had reports of very high number of displaced. As you mentioned, the latest was over 22,000, half of which are children, moving from the city of Mahas into other areas of Hiran region. And the situation is critical because there is overall overcrowding. So a lot of the displaced population are staying with host communities in the location where they've moved. The overcrowding is a protection risk, especially for women and children and any other vulnerable group. It can also cause the more easily spread of diseases. There's also, especially in rural area, lack of access to safe water and safe sanitation. Again, the overcrowding condition also cause an issue in terms of sanitation and a high number of people having to share sanitation facilities. We're also seeing increased reports in terms of protection risks that the displaced populations are facing. And then also health risks and malnutrition increasing. And again, the services are now facing higher number of people coming. So the overall health services are being put at strain. And already we're seeing reports of increasing malnutrition across the populations that have moved.
Now, Save the Children is concerned that 21 health sites you support are currently suspended due to this ongoing conflict. Tell us more about these centers and how they contribute to the communities they serve.
Thank you. Yeah, that's correct. So we have a number of health centers in areas that are no longer accessible that had to suspend activities. And as I mentioned, what it means is in areas where there's still access and population have moved to, the services are put under a lot of strains. So for the population who have moved, we have services that are overburdened, and for the population who have stayed behind, now there is a lack of access to essential and life-saving both health and nutrition services that we were before able to provide in these areas.
And how are the aid cuts affecting Save the Children in Somalia?
Yeah, so aid cuts have had a very large impact across all partners in Somalia, both NGOs, UN partners. In our case, we have over 370 health and nutrition services that have been ended this year because of the funding cuts. High number of health facilities had to shut, around 100 of them. So in countries where we face a very high disease burden as well as severe acute malnutrition, just this year there's 1.8 million children under 5 in Somalia that are suffering from acute malnutrition. It's a recipe for disaster.
And what is the Somali government doing with regards to what their contribution is to this crisis on the ground in the central part of the country?
So the government and all actors providing humanitarian assistance are currently scaling up in areas affected by conflict, but also are trying to look for different resources where the funding cuts have impacted the provision of essential and life-saving services and commodities. So there's a lot more discussion ongoing with, for example, the private sector, with diaspora community outside of Somalia, to be able to still resource these essential services. In terms of this specific crisis, there's a gap on the ground right now that we're seeing. We are also trying to scale up and being able to provide support to the population that have been displaced, but the gaps and the needs remain very high.
And Francesca, I can imagine the sort of, stories that you're getting to hear from the people who are impacted and affected by this crisis.
Yeah, absolutely. So just this week, we were on the ground talking with community leaders, talking with displaced population and local authorities to hear more from them. And what we heard was a huge problem around overcrowding. So a lot of people have now settled back with host communities. And we had one person telling us that in one living room, there were 5 families residing together right now. There's been report of concerns around protection because of this overcrowding, as I mentioned earlier. And we also heard reports, especially from community leaders and local authorities, in regards to the concerning health and nutrition situation on the ground.
And the impact on children, mainly children and women, because in any crisis where there's a conflict or any type of disaster, the most impacted people are the women and children. What are they saying?
Yes, absolutely. So again, the lack of shelter and privacy is a big concern that they've raised to us, because it can further put them at risk of abuse, at risk of gender-based violence. So that was a big concern that came out when we were on the ground this week. For the children, again, when moving, especially due to conflict, there is high chance of family separation, which is a huge protection risk, but also neglect. We're also hearing reports about difficulties in having enough food to eat. So most of the families we spoke to this week told us that they were having 1 meal per day due to having to leave behind their assets and not having any income in the place where they've now settled.
Mm-hmm. Oh, Francesca, because of time, we are going to have to leave it here for today. But thank you so much for joining us on Africa Update.
Thank you for having us.
That was Francesca Sangyogi, Humanitarian Director for Save the Children Somalia, joining us on the line. It is 12:30 and our news headlines up next with Onele Nsinzi.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Lulu. The High Court in Pretoria, South Africa, has ruled in favor of the Zambian government to have the body of the late former President Edgar Lungu repatriated to his home country. President Lungu died in June at a South African hospital after battling cancer. South Africa's Umkhonto Party Deputy Secretary General Nombuso Mkhize has reportedly resigned from her position and has joined Floyd Shivambu's Maibuye Dialogue Initiative. An Israel Security Cabinet has approved a plan for a major expansion of the war against Hamas with the takeover of Gaza City. Channel Africa News, I'm Onele Nsinzi.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective. Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
And a very good afternoon from the sports desk. I am Musibu Dimakura with your latest sports news at the Sawa. So let's start here. The Confederation of African Football, CAF, has slapped the Football Kenya Federation as well as its Tanzanian counterparts with heavy fines following serious security and regulatory breaches during the ongoing 2024 African Nations Championship CHAN tournament. So CAF Disciplinary Board, after reviewing reports from the tournament early in the group stages, found that the FKF were guilty of violating multiple sections of both the CAF disciplinary code as well as its safety and security regulations. The breaches took place during Kenya's opening Group A match against the Democratic Republic of Congo at the Kasarani Stadium, a game that drew massive crowds and also marked a historic start for the host side. Among the incident documented by the CAF security official office, there was a stampede at Gate 11, unauthorized access into restricted public security areas, and alarming footage of a motorbike weaving through the crowd. Now, all fines must be paid within 60 days from the date of notification as stipulated by the CAF regulations. On to some cricket news now. South Africa's fast bowler Kagiso Rabada has urged his teammates to move on from their recent success in the ICC World Test Championship final and now concentrate on winning more major trophies. The Proteas broke a long drought when defending the Aussies in the WTA final at the Lord's Cricket Ground earlier on in June. Rabada wants his players to forget about all the recent successes, of course in the build-up to their first T20 series against Australia this coming Sunday.
Yeah, I think it was special, obviously, I've done so many interviews on that. But I think it's time to move on now. I don't think we'll forget about that ever as a team, and South Africa won't ever, but time to move on now. Hey, the show moves on and we play the game of cricket. I guess so, I guess it is. It's kind of like a relief. But yeah, the show moves on, and moving into the T20 World Cup, we'll approach it as we always have. I guess it will be a bit different now. There's no fear of anything.
Now, speaking about the rivalry between the Proteas as well as Australia, Rabada says he's ready to grab the white ball and renew hostilities with Australia at the BKT Tires T20 as well as the ODI series beginning this weekend.
Yeah, I think the rivalry between Australia and South Africa has always been, something to behold. It's always some hard cricket being played, some good cricketers on display. Whenever we play Australia, we always feel like they get the best out of us because they're sort of in our faces, and I guess we like that. And I guess off the field we're just normal and chilled until we get on the field, I guess.
On to rugby news now, but Tuhlakane, Cheswell Yost as well as Hashim Peed say their time in camp with the Springboks has only strengthened their hunger to reach the highest level. The Boks wrapped up a 2-week conditioning training camp in Johannesburg on Thursday, with the junior Boks stars walking away from the experience inspired to push harder for future selection. Now, the talented trio were invited to train with the senior team during the build-up to the Rugby Championship as part of Rassie Erasmus' plans to build squad depth as well as develop young talent. The Boks returned home yesterday to spend time with their families and will reassemble in Johannesburg on Sunday ahead of their opening Rugby Championship match against the Wallabies at the Ellis Park Stadium on the 16th of this month. And finally, Canadian teenager Victoria Mboko staged a stunning comeback on Thursday to defeat 4-time Grand Slam champion Naomi Osaka 2-6, 6-4 and 6-1, claiming her maiden WTA 1000 title at the Canadian Open. The 18-year-old staged a remarkable comeback after losing the opening set to the Japanese former world number 1, who had established a 3-love lead, as Mboko struggled with consistency as well as costly service errors. However, the home favourite found her rhythm in the second set, breaking serve to establish a 5-2 lead. Osaka then struggled to catch up, and her poor run allowed Mboko to level the match and force a decider. The decisive moment, though, came in the third set when Mboko took a 3-1 lead after saving 4 break points in a pivotal fourth game that now gave her a firm grip on the match as she went on to claim her first title in 2 hours and 4 minutes of play. That's a wrap from the Sports Desk at this hour. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, simply send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +27 11714 4459. For Channel Africa Sport, I am Musibudi Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective. Hi there. Do you want to elevate your business and give it a voice in South Africa and Africa as a whole? Well, in that case, let Channel Africa make this a possibility. Channel Africa is willing to advertise your business for as little as 30,000 rands or $1,719.18. To get access to these great rates, send all requests to mukwenata@SABC. That's MOKOENATA@SABC. Channel Africa, the African Perspective. Business news on Channel Africa, the African Perspective.
Thank you and good afternoon. With your business news, I am Chandruko Ligege. The United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization says world food commodity prices rose in July to their highest in more than 2 years, driven by rising international prices for meat and vegetable oils. The organization says the food price index, which serves as a global benchmark for food commodity prices, averaged 130.1 in July 2025, marking a 1.6% increase from June. That was the highest reading since February 2023, though the index was 18.8% below its peak of March 2022. Women from all around the African continent have gathered for the Pan-African Transformational Leadership Summit in South Africa's Eastern Cape Province. Topics covered included entrepreneurship, transforming the public and private sector supply chain management, and financial services for women and the youth. The summit is in partnership between non-governmental organization Africa for Africa and the Provincial Department for Social Development. Sisisi Halo reports.
Women gathered together with one voice of empowering one another. They came from various sectors which include government, non-governmental organizations, the private sector, and many more.
A 30% tariff imposed by U.S. President Donald Trump on South African imported goods has officially taken effect. Ahead of the implementation, President Cyril Ramaphosa and his U.S. counterpart Donald Trump spoke telephonically. They discussed bilateral trade and said their countries' negotiating teams will hold more detailed talks. Despite trying for months to negotiate a trade deal with Washington ahead of Trump's deadline, addressing the Freedom Dialogue in Johannesburg, International Relations Minister Ronald Lamola said there is uncertainty around negotiations with the U.S.
What I can tell you is that South Africa remains engaged and open to negotiate on the basis of resubmission of an offer through our trade and industry.
The Johannesburg Stock Exchange All-Share Index hit a record high of 100,800 points on Thursday afternoon, despite widespread U.S. tariffs ranging from 10 to 50% imposed on several countries, including South Africa. One key factor behind the rally in the local market is a shift in global capital from the U.S. to emerging economies like South Africa. Meanwhile, the rand strengthened to reach 17 rand 71 cent against the U.S. dollar. Naledi Ngobo reports.
While local markets remain in positive terrain, there are concerns that the rand and the JSE could see some pressure later in the week as the Trump administration presses ahead with the tariffs.
Emerging market central banks implemented their largest rate-cutting push in years in July, while their developed market counterparts held steady as uncertainty over U.S. trade and tariff policies reverberated across global economies. Data shows that 7 central banks from a Reuters sample of 18 developing economies delivered 625 basis points of cuts, the highest monthly cut since at least 2022 in July. The moves were driven by policymakers in Turkey returning to easing with a 300 basis points cut, and Russia's central bank pegging their benchmark 200 basis points lower. Let's now shift our focus to financial indicators at this hour. $1 dollar in Nigeria is at 1,000 naira 527, Botswana 13 pula 39, Kenya the dollar is at 128 shillings 6, Zambia 23 kwacha 57. BRICS countries, $1 in Brazil is at 5 riel 45, Russia 79 rubles 45, India 87 rupee 56, China 71 18, South Africa 17 rand 73 cents. $1 is 74 pence to the British pound and 85 to the euro. Looking at commodities, gold is at $3,396, platinum at $1,323 per ounce. The price for Brent crude oil $66.66 a barrel. That is all for now. For any business stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email, newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or you can call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I am Chanduko Ligenge.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Get Channel Africa on DSTV Audio Bouquet. Channel 802. Africa Update. Your daily dose of African insights. With Lulu Gaboo on Channel Africa.
Well, thank you to Chanduko Ligege with our business news. It is 12:42 Central African time, and we're coming to you live from Johannesburg in South Africa. The SABC is pleased to announce the launch of the new self-registration platform. Vendors wishing to do business with the SABC can self-register on our internally developed platform. Vendors are able to access this platform on our website. That's on www.sabc.co.za/SABC/under e-tenders, or self-register at etender.sabc.co.za/ and follow the prompts. I'll visit SABC social media pages for more details.
Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time.
The Deputy General Secretary of the Basotho Covenant Movement is allegedly on the run. The movement says he is being persecuted by Lesotho security forces. It is unclear if John Musiwa Matsura is in Lesotho or not. Now, Matsura has accused the South African government of committing genocide against the Basotho people.
On the 29th December 2023, Republic of South Africa filed a genocide case against Israel at the International Court of Justice, stating that it evaluated 1948 genocide confession, not being aware that it is also committing genocide against Basotho on a daily basis. On the 16th of August 2012 in Marikana, Rustenburg, South Africa, the Republic of South Africa, about 3,000 mine workers were on strike for a living wage. Then Miners Plaza, 34 miners were killed and 78 were injured, most of whom were Basotho. Most of the miners were shot at the back, were fleeing. A second group of miners were killed at what was known as Sintu, suggesting an execution-style killing. Now, in 2025, South African police officers have been convicted. Not even one were convicted. Another heartbreaking incident occurred at the Lily Gold Mine on the 5th of February 2016, where service collapsed. Yes, when a service collapse occurred, a container officer or office was placed at the mouth of a shaft, fell into a massive sinkhole caused by the ground collapse. 3 workers were trapped underground and have never been recovered. The container is believed to be 60 meters deep, buried under unstable ground. All recovery efforts were suspended with authorities citing safety risks and lack of funds. I can give another example. On the 23rd of September 1998, if I'm not mistaken, 17 Lesotho Defense Force were massacred. The members of SANDF, SANDF, South African Defense Force, 44 Parachute Brigade arrived by helicopter, launched a targeted assault at the Gazi Dam site. Gazi Dam is in somewhere in the mountains of our country. Several roads were reportedly burned and mutilated, and many were found on their beds as if they were taken by surprise. The Lesotho government authorities reportedly discovered legal action prompting accusations of state-level cover-up. Families received low compensation, no trials, no public accountability, and no formal state apology from either the government. Jova Modimu, Aushabasu.
And that was the Deputy General Secretary of the Basotho Covenant Movement, John Musiwa Matsura, ending that report.
Your window to the continent and beyond. Africa Update. Only on Channel Africa. Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Well, today, with the judgment in the case between the Zambian government and Edgar Lungu's family, that's the former president, the late former president of Zambia, we asked the question on hashtag AfricaUpdate. Ask, what are your thoughts on the ruling? Now, the body of the former president is returning home to be buried at Embassy Park. Your views, and we do have some responses on this particular question that we've posed today. And just to get some responses, Ngoma Mkasanga Mambwe responds and says, it is a straightforward matter. National interest overrides that of family. Those who seek the highest office in the land must know they are a national asset and not much on family. Coletta Nyirenda says it's a good idea. And Mutumwenu Lubasi Senior, good job. Family interest cannot override public interest. And also we have a response from Stephen Nyirenda saying that it was expected. Family lawyer misled family members, and all the pain directs to Makebi Zulu. Zambians, we are now happy. This brings a case closure. And also Benjamin Kawunga Nyirenda says it's good news. He was a hero. So these are just some of the responses that we are getting on all our social media platforms, and we would like to hear more from you. And you will get your comments and your views read out on our platform as we pose these questions on hashtag AfricaUpdate Ask. You can still continue sending your views and your thoughts on the ruling of the former late president being repatriated back home at Channel Africa 1 on X and Instagram, on Facebook at Channel Africa, and on +2763 406 9126. That's your voice notes and comments on our WhatsApp number. Hashtag AfricaUpdate Us.
Africa Update with Lulu Gaboo, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time.
And as we continue with this breaking story with regards to the court judgment in South Africa on the decision to have the former late president, Zambia's president Edgar Lungu, repatriated back home, South Africa's High Court, sitting in the country's capital, Pretoria, has ruled in favor of the Zambian government to have the former president Edgar Lungu's body repatriated to be buried in Embassy Park. And to speak to us further on this, we are joined on the line by Zambia's Information Minister, Honorable Cornelius Muikwa. Minister, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Africa Update.
Thank you very much for having me, and good morning.
Minister, we spoke when the story was unfolding, the day it unfolded with, seeing visuals on our television screens, and also we had reporters on the ground, at the church, and, everyone was in court, the Attorney General and the family's lawyers and the family. And now, literally 2 months later, a decision has been made. What is the government's reaction to this ruling?
Well, first of all, we welcome this ruling by the Pretoria High Court. This ruling is in tandem with the aspirations and wishes of the majority Zambians, those who respect our tradition and culture, firstly as Africans, secondly as Zambians who have set for ourselves precedents that former presidents for the Republic of Zambia, or even sitting president, those who have departed, have been allocated unto themselves a special dignified place where they are put to rest, Viz Embassy Park, a place which symbolizes, firstly, the gratitude the nation pays to the contribution that these former leaders or present leaders, as the case may be, have put for country. And secondly, to symbolize a shared, national memory which unites, the country going forward, looking at the leaders who have served this country, being put to rest in one place. It symbolizes the unity that is the foundation upon which this country is founded, and we carry on with one Zambia, one nation. So really, this ruling is one which I think will now put to rest this argument, which has, in our view, unnecessarily protracted, because in the first place it was never anticipated by any iota of reason that it could have played out in the manner that it played out. From where we stand as government and indeed as citizens, we did not think that there was any probable cause to have taken the course of action that this particular a process ended up taking. We did not expect that a Zambian funeral of a former president could be dramatized in the manner that it has been.
Mm-hmm. Now, Minister, let's talk about now what happens going forward. When is the repatriation expected to happen? What sort of processes need to be put in place from your side as the Zambian government, from the South African side, and also from the Lungu family? What happens now? What's the plan of action?
Well, the ruling was just handed down a while ago, and it means that it's now all systems go. The government has to ensure that they obey the orders of the court and ensure that the repatriation of the remains of the former president in earnest begin to be organized. The court ruled there who should be able to receive the remains, and also family. So clearly, this ruling has brought together these parties to work together. That is to say, the government and the family working together to ensure that the former president is given a dignified and befitting, send-off as a former president. So whichever way one looks at this particular issue, the family and government still have to work together. They have to be in one accord to ensure that this process is given finality and closure.
Now, let's talk about, as we wrap up, the family relationship now with the Zambian government. Now it's a case of they're being forced literally to do what they've been trying to fight against. How do you handle this relationship going forward?
Well, from where we stand as government, we do not see that the question of relationship between government and the family is one which could be contemplated to be problematic. We do not think that the relations should be thought in terms of being frosty. These are moments where, as government, we realize also and accept that we are human beings. We are dealing with a grieving family, a family in mourning, ruling, and therefore whatever could have transpired literally is now water under the bridge for most of it, because in an African setup, when a family is grieving, sometimes certain things that happen during those processes have to be understood to be emotive and emotionally triggered. So for us as government, we're a government elected by the people with a mandate to govern the country according to the rule of law, and also administratively to take certain actions that represent the interests of the citizens, including in this particular case, the family. So I think that this ruling now brings, the two parties together, the government and the family, now to look at a way forward of enforcing this judgment together and ensuring that we work together to see that the former president, Zambia's sixth president, is given a befitting, send-off, and then this episode being given finality and closure.
Well, Minister, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us on Africa Update.
Thank you for having me.
That was Zambia's Information Minister, Honorable Cornelius Mwikwa, joining us on the line. And I can tell you the comments are still streaming in. People are responding to our question with regards to the ruling that has taken place today in the High Court in Pretoria, with Jafali Shaibu saying that this is a good idea. My only advice to the Zambian government, please don't push Edgar Lungu's family after the burial. Your plans will only be judged by God. This is from Jafali Shaibu. And also Car Tex, the audio was very clear. So basically saying that, listen, it is out there. The judgment has been made, and the former president of Zambia, the late former president of Zambia, Edgar Lungu, will be repatriated back to his home country, that is Zambia. Well, it is that time for us to head on out of here and leave you with what's coming up at the top of the hour. That's the Upside and the Upside team. From myself, well, Matiko is here. Matiko, how are you? You have to come and let's chat. There's a lot that's been happening. It's been a busy week, has it not?
It has been absolutely insane, and I'm just walking in and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, what a week. Eh?
It has been a week, eh?
Especially looking at the tariffs. It's been a big week for that conversation on the African continent, but also very interesting to note that Donald Trump, and I wanted to talk about this and hear what our African, listener has to say about this. Donald Trump increasing the tariffs in India to 50% for buying Russian oil. I mean, the biggest bully the world has ever seen.
It's you know what, one of these analysts was speaking about earlier this morning, was speaking about how everything that Donald Trump, as president of the US currently, is putting in place, the impact with regards to the rest of the world and on the US itself, that even after he leaves office, it will still be a long time for everything to be, corrected and taken back to where it used to be, things like AGOA and so on. So there's a lot of work that is going to happen after President Trump has left. And now I also see that Russia has agreed, President Vladimir Putin agreeing to a face-to-face with the US, because now they've also indicated that they're keen for a face-to-face. So there's a lot happening. What is the problem? Is it the BRICS formation? Is it the BRICS formation? And everything that's happening outside of the US?
Yes, and the de-dollarization conversation, I think, is also coming into this.
Yeah.
So, look, I want us to address that. We're also going to be looking at a Tribute to Women concert. There's a lot of celebration since it's a weekend for Women's Month in South Africa. And I believe Tunisia is also acknowledging August as Women's Month. So there's a lot to talk about. But
Okay, Tracy's waving her hands and it's time to go. Africa Update, we're out of here. The Upside coming up with Matsiko Mosito, and we will leave it there. It's been a great week. Have a great weekend, and happy Women's Day to all women out there, and we'll talk about it on Monday. Have a good weekend. Bye-bye.
We are on OpenView